Hello, and on Album Rant tonight, I am going to once again talk about British hard rock, and in some cases, according to some people, heavy metal artist Uriah Heep. And I decided to go all the way back to the beginning. I am going to review their very first debut album entitled Very Eavy, Very Umble. At least I think it's very Eavy. Could be very Eavy. I'm going to say very Eavy, so I'm just going to go with that. So, yes, as I said, this is their very first album, released in 1970, but let's kind of catch up on the history of Uriah Heep if you're tuning in for the very first time. Uriah Heep actually goes all the way back to the year 1967 to 19-year-old guitarist by the name of Mick, and he decided to form a band called Howish, and I think that's how you say that. And it was really just a local club band. They just played gigs from here to there in clubs and bars and stuff. And they were very much very low-key. And they went through a ton of different members, but there were two members, one being Mick and lead vocalist David Carrick, I believe that's how you say that, who later changed his stage name to David Byron. They decided to form a songwriting partnerships and had dreams to be something bigger. They wanted to be more well-respected musicians, and they eventually gave up their day jobs and became professionals. And they formed a new band called Spice. And they were joined by two other musicians by the name of Alex Napier, along with Paul Newton being the bass player and Alex Napier being the drummer. And they joined due to ads in the local advertisements. And they decided very early on they did not want to be remembered as a cover band. Yeah, they did do covers every now and then, but they primarily wanted to write their own music, which I very much respect that. So they eventually got signed to a record contract, and it was to Vertigo Records, and they were actually managed by Alex Napier's father, so you can kind of see how they got their foot in the door. And they decided that the name Spice wasn't really cutting it all that much, so they changed the name to reflect a fictional character in a Charles Dickens novel called David Copperfield, and they changed the name of the band to Uriah Heep. And they basically have survived. They have continued making music nonstop for over 50 years. They are still around today. I think they are getting ready to hang it up, and they've gone through a ton of lineup changes, but the fact that this band is still around after all that time, I just gotta give my full respect to that. Now, they still had one piece of the puzzle they needed to complete. They still had one more member they needed to recruit, and that was a keyboardist/organist. And they eventually settled on Ken Hensley, who joined in the year 1970, and he would be with them through the majority of their success all the way to the year 1980. And they really wanted to widen and broaden their sound. They did not just want to keep doing the same thing over and over again. Now, sometimes that really works. Sometimes it doesn't work so well. But the fact remains that I definitely respect that they did not just want to keep repeating themselves over and over and over again, like some rock bands out there do. So, they were big Vanilla Fudge fans at the time, and they were clearly inspired by them. But by the time they were ready to release their first full-length album, they had a lineup of David Byron on lead vocals, Mick on lead guitar, Paul Newton on bass guitar, Alex Napier on drums, and there was actually another drummer who performed on a couple of tracks by the name of Ollie Olson, and then of course Ken Hensley on the keyboard/organ and a whole lot of other stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and check out what we have here. This album, this gatefold, does not open left to right. It opens up to down, which is a little bit awkward, but I'm going to just do the best I can right here. So right here is the title, Very Eavy, Very Umble. We have some credits right there. We have the lineup right there. And we have some pictures of the band in their very early days. These guys were young back then, but of course, you know, they're they're pretty much close to retirement by this point, and tragically, many of these members have passed away, so let's be respectful to that at least. David Byron and Ken Hensley are sadly no longer with us. So I'm going to go right here to the track list. I'm going to kind of keep this thing open and kind of go from here, if that makes any sense. So side one, it kicks off with Gypsy. And Gypsy was the very first Uriah Heep song I ever heard. It was not on this album, it was actually on a Greatest Hits. But I heard the single version, which only runs about 3 minutes or so. And really, there was a lot taken out of that single version because you really need to hear the album version. The album version runs over 6 minutes, and it contains a very iconic guitar intro that the single version sadly leaves out. But it's like dun 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 no no no. And then after that, it goes into this very dark, brooding, thumping, powerful rhythm that goes don't, 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 don't. And then after that, I have really just got to state this. After that little intro segment, when the entire band starts kicking in, the keyboards play a very dominating presence, but they're not overshadowing everyone else. The mix on this song and this album in general is just so top-notch. And I've stated this before, Ken Hensley was really amazing. He had a way of making a synthesizer or an organ sound so incredibly heavy. And it was just a very great and epic combination, which not many are able to really pull off very well. Now, something very interesting about this song, it doesn't have an actual chorus. It just goes from verse to verse to verse, and in between each one, David Byron is doing this very operatic vocalization where he's like, but I did that horribly, but you get the gist. If you've heard the song, you know what I'm talking about, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But yes, again, Byron was a very talented vocalist, and he was very influential to many others, namely Rob Halford and King Diamond, which is just so awesome, okay? This has been described by many as heavy metal. Uriah Heep is considered to be one of the founding bands, or one of the founding acts that really influenced heavy metal and helped it progress through the years, along with Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and Deep Purple. Now, I'm not fully sure if that's really accurate. I feel like it was mostly Sabbath, Zeppelin, and Purple that really paved the way for heavy metal. But if you want to include Uriah Heep in that group, go right ahead. I am not going to stop you. So, anyways, like I said, the keyboards, I've often called them very Deep Purple-like. And again, the mix is just really, really top-notch here. Now, having said all that, some people, like I said, even myself on some occasions, compare these guys a lot to Deep Purple, and while the similarities are there, but Uriah Heep, they really were their own separate thing. They were their own beast, and they were very, very epic for that reason. But I mean, the vocals basically go, I was only 17, I fell in love with a gypsy queen, she told me, hold on, down. Her father was a leading man, said you're not welcome on our land, and then as a foe, he told me to go. And then of course, as the aforementioned vocalization by David Byron, I said, he just goes, ah! And guys, I did the best I could to sing that. Maybe I should stop, but again, that's the basic gist of how the song goes, and again, you know, I tried. So yes, as I said, the song is just so heavy and so bombastic. And there is a great jam session in the middle. Something I have really noticed about this album, there's often times where the band will just slow down for a bit, kind of take a pause and have this little segment right in the middle. It's almost eerie or melodic in some cases before the band really starts to come back and kick right back in. I love the contrast, I'm going to say that, I really do. So yeah, that was Gypsy, a very iconic opening, and like I said, this is a song that they have played in concerts all throughout their existence, and they still play it today. So, The second song is going to be Walking in Your Shadow, and it starts off with a drum intro, which isn't really all that heavy or anything, but that's fine. It's just like doom, 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 doom. And then the main rhythm comes in. It's like dum, dun, no, no, dun, dun, no, no, dun, no. And it's kind of a mid-tempo rocker, which is fine and everything. And it's very powerful. It moves and grooves along very well. This one is not nearly as progressive as Gypsy was. Gypsy would kind of incorporate a whole bunch of different styles into it, would go through all these varying segments and, parts of the greater composition. Walking in Your Shadow is really more of a straight ahead, more traditional song, more traditional rocker, which is great and everything. But again, it goes through the main verse and then, it goes through the main chorus, and we have a little verse, chorus arrangement throughout the song, but it does have a pretty melodic guitar solo in the middle. And it does have a pretty melodic bridge as well, but of course it picks back up and gets things right back into high gear. But I'm walking in your shadow ever since you went away, and the clock on the wall hasn't very much to say. Oh, you left me bleeding and left me needing you. In so very many ways, I was trying to attract your mind, but I'm the lonely one because I've had to leave it all behind. Lied and deceiving, why should I be grieving you? And then of course we have the don't, no, no, don't, no. So yeah, I really like Walking in Your Shadow. Not sure if I mentioned this, but as you probably know, and I've talked about on this channel many times, Metallica is one of the great cover bands of our time. And I actually mentioned this earlier. I think that Metallica could make a cover of Walking in Your Shadow work. And I really think they could, kind of put their own spin on it and kind of turn it into something that sounds like their own. I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense or anything, but they've never covered a Uriah Heep song, and I think it's not too late to get started on that. So yeah, we have Walking in Your Shadow, great song. Now we have Come Away Melinda, and this is actually a cover, and they still did do some covers, even though they didn't really want to be a cover band, and I don't really know too much about the original version, but I do know this. Coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, the very same year, there was another hard rock heavy metal band by the name of UFO, and they actually included a cover of Come Away Melinda on their debut album as well, which also came out in 1970. Now, this did come out a few months before the UFO debut record, so again, if there's any connection, I'm not fully sure, but that is a pretty interesting bit of trivia. But having said all that, Come Away Melinda is a very soft and melodic ballad, and it was never really fully my thing, but again, I get that they're trying to vary it up a bit and dive into various styles and various genres, which is definitely great and everything. But yeah, I mean, Come Away Melinda, it's kind of led by the acoustic guitar and what sounds like a flute, I think. I could be wrong. But I mean, it's good for what it is, but maybe not quite be my style of music. Nor is Lucy Blues too much. This one is a very bluesy and jazzy number, and it kind of sounds like it was a 50s or 60s rock and roll song, or maybe not rock and roll, but it definitely sounds like 50s or 60s blues music, which is, interesting for what it is, okay? I mean, again, it sounds very jazzy, and it's a different style of music than what a lot of this album is reflective of, but it's, again, great to hear their take on what this is. Now, here is something that I need to kind of touch on real quickly. This is the UK release. I am reviewing the UK release. The track list was slightly different between the UK release and the US release. Now, this is actually my second take of this video. I had to stop it the first time because I really messed up this part. But on the US version, Lucy Blues is not on it. Instead, Bird of Prey is on it instead of Lucy Blues. And Bird of Prey, of course, would also be on the Salisbury album, which maybe I will review one day. But again, this release, does include Lucy Blues, so that is what I am reviewing, so I will not be talking about Bird of Prey tonight. But anyways, again, pretty decent song, but kind of one of the weaker ones on here. Gypsy is easily my favorite from side number 1, and that is no contest. Walking in Your Shadows was a very worthy contender, but it is going to fall a little bit short. So, let's now move on to side number 2. It starts off with Dreammare. After a build-up, beginning Dreammare takes us through dream and nightmare sequences with some fine drumming from Ollie. Okay, that's their description of this song. And this one starts off with a very slow, very haunting keyboard intro. And it really does kind of plant the seed because you know that the song is going to explode in a little bit and get very fast and very heavy, and well, your predictions would actually turn out to be accurate because right after that very melodic and dark keyboard intro, it completely explodes and gets bombastic and powerful, and the entire band is just in full gear, and it's amazing. Mick does take center stage, and he has a very electric guitar presence. Wouldn't quite call it a guitar solo, but man, it is heavy. It's a very fast yet grooving guitar intro. And yes, it picks up, it's very fast, and almost has a staccato rhythm to it, if that makes any sense. Maybe it doesn't, kind of seems that way to me. But we have grinning demons, smiling sideways, laughing in my face. Here with my troubled sleep is such a lonely place. Running fast but never moving, I can't get away. Strange but realistic objects make me their prey. Then it's gone as fast as it came, evil dream. Changing like the sun turns to rain, it would seem. And after the verse, Byron does something very amazing. He again goes back to that kind of operatic influence that he's been performing throughout this album, and he does something with his voice. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it sounds like la 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 la. And I tried my best on that, but again, if you've heard the song, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That could have fallen completely flat on its face, but everything about it just works. It fits the mood, it fits the tempo of the song, and I really think that it is a very welcome presence, a very creative presence, and it really makes the song stand out. So yeah, Dreammare is really awesome. I guess you could call this heavy metal opera? Maybe? I don't know. I don't know if that's a thing, but it could be a thing. But yes, instead after the second verse, he then goes to another verse. And he does still do the la 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 thing again, but one thing I really want to note is that Mick again kind of takes over the song for a little bit, and he's got again this very heavy, electric, hard-hitting guitar interlude, and it's just heavy, and it is so awesome. But then again, of course, we go back to the la 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 thing, and pretty much the very end of the song, he's doing that. He's still doing the whole operatic thing, and then the song just kind of fades away, fades out. But man, that was awesome. Now we come to the song Real Turned On. And it's another mid-tempo rocker, kind of like Walking in Your Shadow. This one feels more like a boogie rocker, if anything. And it does stay, it stays very mid-tempo until about the chorus, and has kind of a funk rhythm before picking back up, I guess you could say that. But I'm not going to try to hum this one. This one is kind of all over the place. And all I can say is this, it sounds like it was very much influenced by boogie rock, and it definitely has that kind of style, at least in my opinion. But yeah, the lyrics, as you probably guess, are rather sexual in nature. Girl, before you go now, there's one thing I wanted to do. Let's get your ticket back, because I want to make love to you. You got me real turned on. Oh, yes, you have. So, again, pretty sleazy lyrics. Pretty reflective of this era, I guess you could say. But, it is a product of its time. Now we come to I'll Keep On Trying, and this song is all over the place, okay? This one changes tempo so many times, it almost like it's schizophrenic or something, but it still works because all of these different segments, they actually go together, which I think is really impressive. But it starts out with a very slow and doomy intro. It's like, definitely led by the keyboards, and it sounds eerie and demonic, but it's pretty awesome also. But that does not last for very long because the bass is going to start taking over. It's like, and then the entire band starts coming in once again as before, and it gets very fast and bombastic. We have all of these different segments, as I said, and there are very different approaches between them, but as I said, it works so well. And David Byron's doing some more weird, funky things with his voice. He's like, Yeah, again, you heard the song, you know what I'm talking about, so, don't really go by what I'm doing. But again, like I said, that's what it kind of sounds like, just much better. But yes, again, we have the alternation between the fast segments and that more slow and eerie segment, and the contrast, as I said, works so well. Has a very soft bridge in the middle, and it almost sounds like lounge music of all things. It only goes on for a little bit, not too very long, but then the keyboards start coming back in and the band comes back in and starts picking it up once again, and we get back to the main rhythm. And yes, Mick has got this wah-wah thing he does with the guitar, and he's definitely showcasing that on I'll Keep On Trying. But yes, the last segment, I guess the outro, is very heavy, and it ends the song on a very, very strong note. If you hear like the first couple of seconds of this song, you're like, oh, this song's gonna be soft, it's not gonna be any good or anything. Guys, give it a chance because the song does get very heavy after the intro. And as I said, it's kind of going from one rhythm, one mood to another mood. And even though it's all over the place, it's still really, really good. So it all comes down to this, the very last song on the album. Wake Up, Set Your Sights. And this is a very, interesting number, at least in my opinion. It has almost a very melodic intro. And yeah, it does start to get a little bit more upbeat. The atmosphere does start to pick up a little bit, but the band never fully explodes on this one, at least in my opinion. It's still, got that fast rhythm going, but the band, I don't feel, has gotten or gets as heavy as they do on some of the other numbers on this album. But yes, again, like I said, melodic intro kind of picks up a little bit, at least for the first half. Then in the middle, it all of a sudden gets very dark and murky. And this is one of the segments where David Byron's vocalization reminds me a lot of Rob Halford, or as I should say, Rob Halford reminds me a lot of David Byron because David Byron was doing this long before, a few years at least before Rob Halford. But yes, Judas Priest often had these very dark and eerie ballads, and the way Rob Halford sang them reminds me a lot of how David Byron sings the middle of Wake Up, Set Your Sights. It's interesting, but another thing that you probably already know is that the song never really explodes after that. It maintains that very slow and eerie atmosphere for the rest of the song, and then that's pretty much it, and that is the end of Very Eavy, Very Umble. What is my favorite from side 2? I am going to go with Dream Mare today. I think all of the songs on side 2 are very solid, just some are better than the others. And of course, the entire album is great. Just Come Away Melinda and Lucy Blues are probably the weakest songs on the entire album, at least in my opinion. I'm sure there's someone out there who's just going to tell me I just don't get it, and that I don't know what I'm talking about. That's fine. If you like those songs, if you think they're the best, awesome. Post your comments. Just tell me why, and please be respectful. But I have to tell you this, Uriah Heep fans, at least in my time on this channel, have been really great. I just want to say thank you very much for joining me tonight, and that is the end of my review of Very Eavy, Very Umble. Yes, you need to check out this album. You very much do. I did a Uriah Heep album ranking video a few months ago. Very Eavy, very Umble was ranked second on that video, which is very impressive. They have 25 albums as of today, which is such a rich discography. And in my opinion, very Eavy, very Umble is the second best Uriah Heep album, and it is a really great Uriah Heep album and a very great rock heavy metal album, in my opinion. So having said all that, thank you all again for joining me tonight. You guys are absolutely amazing. Anyways, next week, the countdown is going to continue. But until then, have a very pleasant evening.